There's a whole bunch of LeBron sneakers crashing together in my mind right now, and I'm thinking about this shoe today. Today what we're looking at is the baseball blue, but we all know it's going to be called the LA Dodgers, and that reminds me of a shoe I did recently which was called the multicolor, but actually we all know that that's going to be called the Fruity Pebbles. And then there's the Haiti 7s, which are, you know, one of the biggest 7s that ever was. There were only about 2 made, and they were for charity to help with the relief efforts after the Haiti earthquake. So there's a bunch of shoes sort of all crashing together in my mind when I think about this one, especially given that last year was the 10th anniversary of the LeBron 7s, and that in itself was a question about whether or not the LeBron 7s was when the LeBron line sort of made its stride, was, you know, found its groove, and the 7s was what started it off, found its place, you know, position in the sneaker world. A lot of people would agree with me on that and say that the 7s was the first real big breakout sneaker in LeBron's line. Of course, you know, he's been a huge athlete and a huge basketball player from the very beginning. And then we've got this shoe today, so the LA Dodgers, or the baseball blue, whichever way you want to look at it. Kind of interesting timing, because the LA Dodgers are the current Major League Baseball champions, and then you've got the Lakers are the current NBA champions, which is kind of, you know, cool to have them both from the same city. But they also both beat teams out of Florida last year to win their respective championships. Just as well, Tampa Bay won the Super Bowl to make sure that it wasn't just some kind of, you know, anti-Florida thing going on, if you know what I'm saying. So, but with all that said, you know, talking about that kind of stuff, there's a lot to look at in today's shoe and talk about the branding, the construction, and the hits on it. So without further ado, let's just get into this and have a close-up look at the upcoming release on April the 9th. Again, so many sneakers dropping on that very special day. It's such a great day, and I'll tell you about that in this video, as well as all those hits on this upcoming release of the Nike Lebron 7 Baseball Blue. This is the Tokyo Bara 23 Sneaker Channel. Tokyo Bara 23 Sneaker Channelです。毎日アップするので毎日見てください。And every single day from Tokyo, Japan, I bring you content about upcoming sneaker releases, sneaker news, and sneaker reviews. And today in the spotlight is the LeBron 7. And like I said at the start of this video, the LeBron 7s had their 10th anniversary year last year, so we saw a lot of sneakers rolling off the line. Was it China Moon? There's a gold one that's in my mind, and there was also a blue one that had a significant sort of link to this shoe today as well, because the leather down low on the upper had some wooden detailing going on in there, even though it was a very blue shoe. And we'll get into that detailing on today's shoe in a minute. But first and foremost, let's just get into why April the 9th is a really big day. There are a lot of sneakers dropping on April the 9th. I have no idea why. It just seems to be there's a bunch of sneakers coming down the line. And to be honest, I've looked at maybe, I'm going to go with 7 different shoes that are dropping on April the 9th. It's very surprising that that one day in the calendar is getting a lot of heat for some reason. And the other more important reason why it's a big day in the calendar is because it's my birthday. Yahoo! So maybe given it's my birthday, I should go after a couple of pairs of shoes on that day just to celebrate, you know what I mean? Think I can run that by Mrs. Butter and she'll let me off with it? Fingers crossed. But that aside, you're forgetting about the dates and all that, and all those other shoes that have kind of clashed together in my mind to think about what's going on today. Let's just get into this shoe and talk about what it's doing. We already talked about whether or not it's called the LA Dodgers. They're calling it baseball blue, which is great because those multicolors I talked about before, one of the sites that I like to go to for my information called that University Blue, and I had issue with that because that's the University Blue for the Jordan line, not the LeBron line. So it's great that they're calling this baseball blue and not something else that maybe makes too much of an overlap with another line, if you know what I'm saying. But they're not calling it the LA Dodgers yet. I don't know if they ever will, but it's clearly a red, white and blue shoe. And to be honest, I was about ready to pass it over. So you know what, I don't need to do that shoe, it's too simple. But then I did look closely at it, and like I said, it's that blue leather on there that really attracted my attention, and said, you know what, this deserves a closer look. And that brings us to where we are right now to look at that shoe. So let's get into it and start high and work our way down low. So there's a couple of really neat little details that make this a little bit more than just a red, white and blue shoe, and we'll get into that right now. And we're going to start right up there on the tongues and the heels, but not on the top line, because what we're talking about is at the top of the tongue and at the top of the heels you've got this oversized red stitching, and it's kind of important. There's one more significant hit of red on the highest parts of the shoes, and I'm talking about the medial side branding, which you can see right here. But if we go back to that oversized stitching high up on the shoe, basically the top I don't know, 90% of the shoe is white and blue, and then there's a couple of tiny little hits of red in there. So that red stitching is really important. When we get to the outsole, you'll see that's where the red takes over and comes into its own. But for now, the main hits of red on this shoe come in that oversized stitching at the top of the laces and the top of the tongues, and not the top of the laces, the top of the laces and top of the heel. And then if we drop down from that, we get into one of the things I really like about the LeBron line, and it's even true of the 18s right now, is that they tend not to have a matching medial and lateral side, which is kind of one of the things I really appreciate. A lot of shoes are very symmetrical these days, especially when you think of the Yeezy line. You can kind of draw a line, even down complicated shoes like the Yeezy 500s and Yeezy 700s, they still have a very symmetrical left and right or lateral medial side to them, whereas on the LeBron shoes, and especially these 7s, that isn't the case. So we're going to look at the swoosh first and foremost. On the lateral side, you can see it's a white swoosh with that blue outline running around the edge of it. Very nice. And then we flip that out to the medial side, and instead of having I don't know what you'd call it, a stickered on swoosh like they have on the lateral side, and the medial side is embedded into the fabric of the shoe, and it's solid blue. So the contrast in the construction and the contrast in the colours of the medial and the lateral swooshes is a very big feature on the shoes. And like I said, those medial swooshes are not too far away from that medial branding on the medial side of there, with that hit of red that's kind of important, because the rest, without the two reds, you know, stitching up high and the branding on the medial side, it would kind of be very blue and white. So having that in there gives us that red feel for the shoe. Now, before we get down lower on the shoe, I'm going to go to two really special places, and then we'll go to a third special place that will lead us into the bottom part of the shoe. Now, first special place is a question for you guys out there. I think this says LJ7 on the aglets, but I might be wrong. It kind of looks like Cristiano Ronaldo's CR7 in the font that it's using, but it looks like LJ7 to me on the end of the aglets. Please let me know in the comments down below if you've seen this before, if you know what it is. I haven't noticed it on LeBron 7s before, but then again, I maybe haven't looked closely enough. And then the second sort of feature that I want to get to is one of my favorite things, is the bottom of the laces, where you see LeBron on one and James on the other. I think it's LeBron on the right foot and James on the other, and the left foot on the left shoe. And they're supposed to be doubrays down there, but they're not removable. They're attached to the laces, which kind of locks the laces into one particular place. You have to have that doubray there, because you can't have it halfway into one of the lace holes, you know, the lace stays. It just wouldn't work unless you get really, really creative with where you position that. So it does kind of reduce the amount of control you have over, you know, a bit of artisticness, you know, by moving that around a little bit there. That that doubray at the bottom of the laces just has to hold in that particular position. And then the third of my three favorite little hits on this shoe that I really dig, and these are kind of consistent things across the LeBron 7s, is on the toe roll, where you see 20 and 3 rolled up on the toes there. I think that's a really cool little feature, and it gives just a little bit extra. I like it when they have a little bit extra on the shoes, a little bit of detail, and that's actually true of the back of the shoe as well. If we go around to the heel, you can see an L on one and a J on the other for LeBron James, sort of embedded or debossed into the heels on there. So it's little details like that, the aglets, doubrays, toe roll, and then on the heel, they elevate these shoes to an extra level, and I think that's why the 7s are still very popular even now. But let's flip it upside down and have a look on the outsole, because that's the final place to go on this shoe, and it is, like I said, the major hit of red on the shoe. If you think about how small the red is on the oversized stitching up high, and then that just a nod on the medial side too, which is the less seen side of the shoe in red as well, with the LeBron James branding on there. And then finally, when you get to the outsole, you can see how much it's predominantly red, majorly red, with a little bit of white in there as well. And that's kind of important if you want to go with that LA Dodgers feel for the shoe instead of baseball blue. And then the final thing to do is just to zoom in as close as we can on the main feature of the shoe, which is that leather in blue. I'm going for palm trees. I think these are palm trees to celebrate Los Angeles. You know, palm trees are a very big feature of the Southern California what would we call that? The Southern California weather or climate. That's the word I'm looking for. And you can see that sort of etched into the lower part of the leather, and that gives it a great little bit of detail. And they're talking about what those leaves are. I'm going with palm trees, but if you've got a different take on that, definitely add your name down below in the comments and let us know what you're thinking. But for now, that's it. That's our look at these LeBron James baseball blues. The 7's coming up on April the 9th. And like I say, there's so many shoes on April the 9th this year. I don't know why. Maybe it's for me. Maybe I'm finally making an impact with my 1,800 subscribers or so. Channel still keeps getting bigger and bigger. I've got some ideas for the future. That trip I took to Harajuku sneaker shop and gave me some really big ideas for the future. So fingers crossed those will come to pass. But for now, what we have to do is the thing that we do at the end of every single video, which is just remind you guys that I do this every single day. And if I do this every single day, that means that you are guaranteed to see me tomorrow.